Welcome to the Women's Motorsports Network podcast, the show that puts the spotlight on the incredible women who fuel the world of motorsports. From drivers to crew members, engineers to fans, and everyone in between, we're here to celebrate the trailblazers, dreamers, and doers shaping the sport we love. Each episode, we share inspiring stories of females of all ages from every corner of the motorsports universe, past, present, and future. It's a journey through the seasons of life filled with heartfelt moments, laughter, and a whole lot of horsepower. So whether you're a lifelong fan, a racer yourself, or simply curious about the extraordinary women behind the wheel, settle in, relax, and enjoy a fun and uplifting ride with us. This is the Women's Motorsports Network podcast, connecting and celebrating women in motorsports, one story at a time. Let's hit the track.
Hello, everyone. This is Melinda Russell with the Women's Motorsports Network podcast. And Fallon Tucker is my guest today. And so, Fallon, I want to welcome you to the show. And first of all, I love your name because it's different. And mine used to be different. You never heard Melinda very much, but now you hear it more and more. And especially, Melinda Gates, that was kind of a famous Melinda.
Yeah.
But anyway, and so welcome to the show. And would you start by just sharing a little bit about yourself?
Yes. Thank you so much for letting me be here. I will say that my married name is Fallon Constantino, but I still haven't got my stuff changed. So I'm working on that. I am a mom, a wife, and a woman in motorsports. I have a background, I have several different degrees. I have a background in finance, public health, and motorsports management. So a little combination of a few things. And now I work as a part-time employee, I suppose you'd say, with IMSA. And I travel with all of their network, and I contract here and there with other racing organizations and different. Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
And different racing venues when they have different series come to town.
That's exciting. And so it's interesting. You said public health, motorsports management, and finance. So you could actually, Fallon, you could do the books, be on the medical crew, the medical team at the race. And, so many things. You've got so many talents behind you. So tell me, what do you do for IMSA and how did you get there to that job? It sounds like you've had a lot of interesting jobs along the way. Tell me about your journey.
Oh man, so there's so many. I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I guess that's a lot of people, but I decided to take the advice and wisdom of others. And, I was enrolled in college right after high school, but I didn't really apply to a whole bunch of colleges because I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I was kind of behind, I guess you could say, in that category. So I registered with the local community college and I started working at the local animal hospital. And that's kind of worked there for a little bit. And then on and off again, like different, weekend jobs and different race jobs along the way. Then I worked in the office for a construction company. Then I worked in the office for another construction company. And then I went on, once I finished my finance degree, I went and worked for a wealth management firm. And all the different jobs that I've had along the way have all taught me something for sure. I've learned, different pieces from here, this from this person, this from that person. From the CEO to the janitor. Sincerely, I don't mean that as cliche as it sounds, but I I learned little bits of here and there from every person that I've worked with and every job that I've worked at. But yeah.
Yeah. And, when you say you learned also from the janitor, there's, that's something that, nobody can take away from you. First of all those things that you learned from those people. But, I've often heard it said about people that, some people that they treat everybody the same, from the janitor to the president. And number one, that's important because every job is important.
Yes.
And so there's probably so many things you learned all along that way. And yeah, I can't even imagine, trying to remember everything that came to you there. But it all at one point kind of comes back to you, doesn't it? When you're doing a job that you didn't think you would ever be in, and something will remind you of something that someone said that really pertains to that job. And so it's a culmination of everything that you've learned, starting from when you were a little girl.
Yes.
And that's true of so many of us. And, I think back to some of the jobs I had, and I never thought I'd be doing this, having a podcast. There was no such thing as a podcast back in the day.
Right. Yeah.
And so we have to be open, I guess, is what I'm trying to get to. We have to be open to the people around us and the things that they are going through and the things they're saying and what we can learn from them, because there's so much
from everybody. And you make valid points in the sense of, like, if you thought that I was there was a piece of me as a little girl that loved racing, but I never thought I'd be doing anything that I'm doing right now. That just wasn't in the forecast for me. That's not what any advisor told me. That's not anything that anybody in my family's ever done. So, there was no kind of foot in the door or any kind of, long-term advice. And on top of that, being a female was just not even heard of. So,
no. So yeah. How did you get to IMSA? What led you there?
To IMSA specifically?
Well, or motorsports. Yeah, I don't know your whole story. You tell us. How did you get to where you are today?
So a family friend of ours, Paul Farrell, rest in peace, amazing human. He and my dad used to work together. And I believe the story was that Paul was already working for this, what you call the local event or a club series, CCS motorcycle racing. And my dad went with him just, as friends, wanted to, try something different, see what was going on. And he ended up liking it. And then Paul suggested to him, like, hey, maybe this is something that you and your daughter could, like, do together, hang out together. So he brought me. I remember being put in the back of a white pickup truck. Can't remember what kind of pickup truck it was, but it's Carolina Motorsports Park on the sunny day. And then the next day it rained. So they had this like enclosed trailer and I'm standing in the back of it with like a poncho on and I'm manually scoring at the start finish line as the motorcycles go by. This was before transponders or any kind of electronic timing and scoring systems, especially on the club level for anything. Right. And I remember just being so like, oh my God, this is awesome. At the end of the weekend, the owner came out, Kevin Elliott, and asked me how many races I could be at. I remember he was a very large, intimidating man, so I was quite nervous. I was this little tiny, it was in like 11, 12 years old, or somewhere around there. And I was very like, oh my gosh, and scared of him. And then he asked me how many races I could be at. I remember looking at my dad being like, you tell me. He's like, we gotta talk to your grandparents, just the whole thing and figure it all out. And kind of history from there. I, of course, as a kid, I wanted to be out on the corners with the flags. That's what all the kids, oh my gosh, that's so much fun. So I'm thinking that's so much fun. Jennifer Reese brings me out onto the corners. They would not let me be out there only for practice. No, not for qualifying or racing. I had to be scoring, but I tried so hard. And then from there, I did a little bit of registration for the motorcycles. And I remember one day, Alan Muse, I went up to race control to pick up, somebody asked me to get a piece of paper or bring Alan a piece of paper from registration, something. I don't remember what it was for exactly, but for some reason I'm going up to race control, and Alan Muse is there, and amazing human as well. He says, if there was one thing that you could learn at the racetrack, what would it be? And I'm like, oh man, thinking to myself, it's like a lot of action going on up there. And I said, honestly, I'd love to know what you're doing up here, out of pure curiosity, because there was a lot going on, not because I genuinely wanted to learn at the time. Like, I love learning, but as a kid, I'm not trying to do too much. The next thing I know, wasn't a kid at that point. At that point, years had passed. I was like 23, 24, I guess. But to me, it's still a kid. Next thing I know, I'm not out on the start-finish stand. I'm not allowed registration, which is crazy, by the way, because for years and years, they wouldn't let me do anything else.
Right.
Excuse me. And so next thing I know, I'm in race control, training with Alan, and it just kind of snowballed from there. Next weekend, I end up being in New Jersey, Motorsports Park, because they didn't have anybody for race control that weekend. And then there I go.
Wow. And, I listen to a lot of podcasts, Fallon, and I was just listening to one yesterday evening. And again, they talk about how, had it not been for this wouldn't have happened. Had it not been for this would not have happened. So had you not taken that piece of paper up there, you might still be scoring.
I am a firm believer that everything happens for a reason, that nothing is coincidence. So whatever the reason for, God, the universe, my higher self, whatever they knew. So the plan was good. And so I just roll with it. And then from there, I was traveling around with the club series. And again, like I said, I was working a lot with New Jersey Motorsports Park. They were new to the scene. I was helping with like the corner marshaling. And I remember this guy that used to manage there. I'm not really totally sure what his exact title was, but he was basically like the track manager when I was there. And he would just be standing in the back of this room of race control. And I'm sitting there in motorcycle racing, it's typically one, maybe two people in race control handling like all the radios. It's a lot, especially again on the club level. So he would just be in the back and I'm doing all this stuff. The announcer's in the next room. I can see him because it's glass. And, we're doing hand signals to each other, communicating to each other, keeping everything on pace. You know how it goes. But he's just back there like watching. And I'm thinking like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Whatever. Next thing I know, I'm getting, emails or calls about, do you want to come and check out the IMSA race control? And at the time, I was very dedicated to what I was doing. And I kind of shrugged him off a few times, not really, knowing. But again, he came one door when I finally was done with motorcycles for, doors closing. And it was just like clockwork. Here he comes again. Hey, do you want to come take a look at IMSA race control? And at that point I said, yes, I'm interested.
And what year was that? How long ago was that?
That was in 2019. So I went to observe race control with IMSA in 2019 in Sebring at the Encore race.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you fell in love with it?
Instantly. As soon as I walked into race control, I said, oh my God, they've got one person for each job. And it's 12 times as more complex per thing. And it's like the nucleus of the brand. I am a complete nerd. So it was exciting for me. It was like a whole new set of things to learn and new tools, and it was really exciting. Yeah.
That's very exciting. So tell me, what does the race control safety dispatcher, is that your title?
Yes.
Okay. So tell me, what is your job and what are the duties of that? Like, if, at the IMSA race, what are all the things you have to do?
Okay, so we will come from from an IMSA standpoint. For me, my best, I guess the way to say my best understanding, the way I operate is we have race control set up, and you've got people that are talking, someone who's talking to the teams, somebody's talking to the corner marshals, somebody who's IMing the teams and speaking to them via chat, person who's doing all of the logging of every incident, of its time stamping everything. The person that's doing the data is also doing the IMing and chatting with the teams, and they're right next to the race director who's giving them a lot of direction. You've got a replay system going on, and you've got your driver advisors who are reviewing different things for penalties and different, all kinds of stuff they're reviewing. And there's just a lot going on. And then you've got me over here. And when there's an accident or debris on the racetrack, anything like that, you see the medical team that'll come out. You'll see the AMR trucks. We have Ford Raptors this year. Super exciting. Super exciting. Nice. They're really nice.
I'm sure they are.
Thank you, Ford. So when you see them come out, and then you see the different wreckers and rollbacks and things like that, and the fire trucks, those are the people that I'm speaking to on the ground.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you see an accident happen, I know like on TV, you see the safety crew, they're the first ones there. Then they're the ones you're talking to, and they're saying, Fallon, we need an ambulance. Fallon, we need this. Fallon, we need that. And then you contact those people and get them out on the track. Is that kind of how it works?
So that is where I will clarify when we're speaking about, like, from the IMSA perspective versus, say, like an a different FIA sanctioned event like Formula One.
Okay.
So for IMSA, I'm getting a lot of information from race control. I already know what the race director wants to do. He's already told me what the goal is. But the best part about IMSA is the autonomy for me to know what my guidelines are, what my rules are. But I'm allowed to work within this sphere of getting the job done. IMSA allows my experience, expertise, the way that my brain works, the way that my guys respond to me, and allow me that flexibility and autonomy. And it's wonderful. Not that other organizations are not. I just, that one difference. And if I need help, or if I feel like I'm over my head, or I have questions, or I'm stuck, there are so many resources in race control and on the ground. It is oh man.
It's a team that, everybody has your back, don't they?
Absolutely. I like to say that nobody in that room or on the ground is going to let another person fail.
Right.
Period. So I have a lot of resources, a lot of tools. And then if you're going to come from a FI, like, let's say it's a WEC, like when WEC is in town at COTA, and COTA is the actual sanctioning body for this, and not IMSA per se. I don't want to say have to, but the back row, or the FIA WEC officials, they are giving me instructions on what they want done and how they want it done. And then I have to go on their command.
Okay.
Which is fine. I understand why they have their procedures, and because every series is a little bit different. And especially when you have international series that go from European to the United States.
Right.
The road courses in Europe, they require a lot of the high lifts and the intervention marshals who are on foot. Whereas with the road courses, you don't really have that. So it's just a lot of different dynamics and a lot of different inputs. So
did it take you a long time to kind of figure out, like when they're there, the things they want and how to get them what they want? I mean, or does it all basically kind of make sense and you understand, or did it take a little time to kind of figure all that out?
I know that you want the answer to be black and white, but it's so gray here because there's so much that just naturally hits because of the decades of racing experience. And I understand flag condition. I understand needing to go back to green. I understand not necessarily what the race director is thinking, but the process that they're going through to get things back to green. I understand from a driver management perspective, like what they're needing. But there's so many different things. But that doesn't mean that I know everything right away. I relied a lot on the guys and girls on the ground to tell me what they need. I think it's super important that when the people who are actually doing the physical work feel empowered and supported and engaged and locked in with their dispatcher, it's just a natural flow. They won't let me fail. So, and then over time, which not, years per se, but maybe like a year, 2 years. And it always, you're always growing, you're always learning new things. Literally just learned something the other day that I've been working with these guys for 5 years on. And it was like, oh, this could make this so much easier in a communication. Let's try this. And so, but
until you're in the middle of it and working in it, you wouldn't know that.
Yeah.
Right. You have to experience it and go through it. And then your brain starts to work and it's thinking, now, what if we did it this way? It might be better, or, and so, it makes sense that would happen.
Yeah. And you have different crews all around the United States. So our crew with IMSA and the AMR team, whether it's with IMSA, NASCAR, IndyCar, they all have their own safety team that travel around, and they're all the same people. However, when you have at your different venues, let's say Watkins Glen versus COTA versus a street course like Long Beach, all the people who are the local resources, they're local resources. They don't travel around.
Okay.
For the exceptions of Steps wrecker and rollback service, we do have contracts with NASCAR through them and some through IMSA, and they do travel to some of the stuff, just not everything.
Okay. Because consistency obviously makes it go smoother, and so the more you can do that, the better.
Yes. Yeah. And we try to train with the local guys at least once while we're there. We do morning PowerPoint presentation and morning breakouts every day to reduce complacency and to kind of debrief from the day before. There's a lot of team building that goes in, because at the end of the day, everybody, they're not there unless they have the skill, if they have the talent.
Right.
And all the guys on the fire trucks, we have battalion chief. We have Rob, he's a battalion chief with them. We've got guys who have just got decades of experience and are really, really good at what they do, all on these units. So if they weren't qualified, they wouldn't be there. It's just about making sure if everybody can work together, get the job done, go back to green.
Yeah. And this is something, Fallon, that we talked about just for a second before we started recording, that a lot of people don't even know your job exists. Or, what it takes. I mean, really, what it takes up in that tower, because they come to the race, they sit down, they watch their favorite driver, they go home, and they don't think about what all it takes to put that race on. And that's true of a lot of jobs at the racetrack. But, can you speak to that just a little bit about, the jobs that maybe, you're a woman can do any of those jobs, I know, but jobs that maybe we don't typically think about, that you work with?
Absolutely. So right now, we just did a walkthrough in Daytona about a bunch of the different jobs. A lot of people don't realize that racing is its own ecosystem. If you go to school for something, I promise you, I don't care what it is, other than maybe like underwater basket weaving, there is a job for you at the racetrack. I promise you. There are forklift operators. We need CDL truck drivers. We've got engineers, doctors, lawyers, nurses, people with absolutely zero certifications, but they're very skilled. They have great skill sets in communications. You've got PR directors. You've got strategic business analysts. You've got data analysts. You've got, I mean, the list goes on and on and on.
Right.
Things that most people, I mean, don't even think about. You've got marketing directors, campaign directors, all those little signs that go up all around the racetrack that say Rolex or IMSA or NASCAR, IndyCar. We call them our little ninjas, because they get out there and they just like, they're so fast. But Emily's team, they're just awesome. But I mean, you literally have people that fly all over the place just to replace signs and to move signs, and that's just because they're really, really fast. And they've got the cognition of like, you pay attention. You've got TV, radio, you've got broadcasting, and the umpth degree. There's just literally something going on in any realm that you can think of.
Right. And that's one of the things that we like to share on this podcast, is that it's not just drivers or crew chiefs or tire changers.
Yeah.
There's so many things that go on behind the scenes. And those are things that if you want to be a nurse, but you love motorsports, you could combine those two jobs. I interviewed a couple different ladies that are the makeup artists for the TV personalities for NASCAR.
Yes.
Who knew?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like during the 24 hours at the Rolex, my first Rolex experience, I remember going out. It's like, I don't know, 2:00 in the morning. I've been looking at the Ferris wheel. I'm already like, I go out into the hallway to go grab a snack. And I remember just looking down, and I don't remember if it's Brian Teal or who it was, but there's somebody from broadcast. They're in the hallway. They're getting their makeup done. And then somebody else walks out, had just got their makeup done. They're in a, suit, their tie, whatever. But then they've got their pajama bottoms and slippers on the, just wild. And there you are getting your makeup done in the hallway, and people are taking a nap over here. But they've got people, literally different teams. They have baristas.
Yeah. I know. It's crazy. And we have to be reminded about all those things, because the normal raceman does not think about all those jobs that it takes to put that race on.
Yeah. And how many people are actually wearing multiple hats? I cannot stress that enough. In racing, you can have your tailored, specialty when like engineering and things like that. But I will say, to be successful in racing, you are going to need to be willing to wear multiple hats, because it will come a time. I'm not saying it's always going to be like that, but there's going to come a time where you're going to have to do that.
Pitch in. You got to pitch in and do what needs to be done. So Fallon, what is your favorite thing about your job?
Oh God, so many. This might sound funny, but I sincerely love the fact that I am a part of the success and or failure of whether or not the race finishes under green, and that our drivers are safe.
That's not funny. I can see that. I can see why that would be important to you.
Yeah. I love, I don't know if it's the adrenaline rush or if it's the the part of knowing that I'm a part of something bigger. If you have somebody in safe, this is, I feel that all the safety dispatchers that I work with are phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
They literally fantastic. Amy, Michelle, Billy, the list for sure, forever, they're wonderful. However, in like club racing, if you don't have somebody who understands the urgency, doesn't understand all the different parts of it, that literally can make or break whether or not your race can go back to green.
Yeah.
Which is, I feel like, one of the entire points of racing.
Yeah, I think so. Green is important in racing for sure, isn't it? Yeah.
So obviously there are big hits, there are big situations, there's serious medical concerns, and that is number one. But I will say that I take it personally, and we go back and we debrief right away when we don't finish something under green and it had anything to do with us. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So would you recommend, I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask anyway, because I want your opinion. Would you recommend getting involved in, let's just say that, there's so many women, we're talking women today. Okay. People out there, this is a podcast about women. So, would you say that being a woman, but not a driver, I don't want to drive, I don't want that experience, but I want to be involved in motorsports somehow. What's the best way to get your foot in the door, do you think?
Honest to God, it's to become a flag marshal, get involved with your flagging somehow and flagging. That is just to be honest. You just can't get stuck there. That most people get stuck there. But to learn on the most basic level would be somehow getting in with your corner marshaling system. And that's the easiest way.
Okay.
Easiest. If you're looking for a more executive role, a more engineering role, a more anything like that, it's always about, I don't want to say it's always, but it's always going to be about the relationships and connections that you're making. And that's why I say get in as a corner marshal, because oh my God, I'm going to give away all my secrets. There's nobody I will not talk to. I told myself, I made it my 2026 mission this year. I was like, okay, so my goal last year was to get onto as many calendars as I could. This year, my goal was to meet Roger Penske. I'm sitting there on the grid at the 24-hour in Daytona, and I'm like, I'm doing it this year. I'm introducing myself, My teammate, Povey, says, I don't think you're going to have to wait that long. And I'm thinking, like, what are you talking? She's like, he's right there. I turned around. He was right there on the grid. Absolutely. I had no business talking to Roger Penske minutes before the Daytona 24. And no business doing that. He's in the middle of a presentation, doing his thing. I did the best I could to wait. But I just had to have the audacity. Like, there's never, ever going to be another chance. Nobody's going to go, oh, Fallon, do you want to meet Roger Penske today? I mean, maybe it'll happen, but especially being in race control, you're very detached from anything like that that's happening. So since I had Farmer there for me, who work as a team for the endurance stuff, or Dan, sometimes there's multiple people for endurance stuff, but Farmer was there. So he started the race and let me be down on the grid. So there was Roger Penske. So I just walked right up to him and introduced myself and started talking to him. And that is my biggest advice to anyone, especially women. There's nobody that you can't just introduce yourself to.
Right.
And literally just say, hey, can I pick your brain about something? Make something up. I mean, it doesn't even matter.
Because you know what, Fallon, they're people. They're just people. Are they very successful? Are they this? Are they that? Of course. But in the long run, when you get down to the end of the day, they all put their jammies on and go to bed like you do or whatever, And so I would think that people are leery of introducing themselves to famous people in racing or anywhere, but we're talking racing. So, if you saw Jeff Gordon and he was your idol and he was your favorite driver back in the day, would you be afraid? Yes, because he's famous in your eyes, but he's just another person. And I would think that they would appreciate and enjoy talking to people that introduce themselves, because more times than not, people are afraid to do it. And so they don't.
Yeah. I've been working a lot with one of my relatives, and he's been mentoring me a lot. And he told me to just ask him some questions on how he got there. And so I did. I just started talking about how he got there. And so that would be my biggest advice. Sorry, is to, take my uncle's advice and just talk to anybody who will listen. That doesn't mean that you have to word vomit on them. That just means introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, and you don't have to ask them for anything. Hi, my name is Fallon. I work in IMSA race control. I'm a huge fan. Or don't even say you're a huge fan. You can just say, I like your work. It's really nice to meet you. I look forward to working with you in the future. Right. I literally told Roger Penske, I look forward to working with you in the future.
And you know what? So Fallon, he may remember that. There may be a role come open at the Indy team. And he's like, you know what? Remember that lady? And so you just never know. You have to put yourself out there because nobody else is going to, right?
Exactly. And so that's why I say that advice, just talk to anybody. It's so important to build those relationships. And if you start out as a flagger, say for the racetrack, it's volunteer. So, you're not committed to anything, but you're going to start meeting people. And then those people, you're going to meet other people, and then you're going to get different positions, and then you're going to figure things out. If you know specifically what you want to do, there is no shame. Pick up the phone, call a team, reach out on social media, send them a message. Say, I'm a newbie. I don't have any experience. Can you guide me in the right direction? Do you have anything? Do you have I'll clean your toilets? I mean,
exactly.
Something I learned from the janitor. I kid you not, there's somebody who was a janitor for a firm that I worked for, and literally is up on their board today because all that he did was take notes and pay attention.
Yeah. There are more stories like that than we know. We just don't hear them.
Yeah. So it's not rocket science.
No, it's not. But people are shy and they don't, it's kind of like, oh, what have I got to give? But really you have a lot to give. Everybody does. Everybody has their talents. And so I love that you went up and spoke to him. See, I really don't have a fear of doing that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Part of it's my age. It's like, okay, so what happens if they don't want to talk to me? I've met Mike Helton, different people that were heads of NASCAR and all kinds. And I just go up and say, I'd like to introduce myself, and I listen to your podcast or I do this or whatever. And so that's all cool.
It's just getting out that good energy.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So Fallon, is social media anything that you use like for your job, or you share anything like, or about your job, or is that more separate from what you do?
So I'm going to be honest. I love social media for business purposes. So for my husband's business, utilize social media in a lot of ways. Personally, I'm pretty sure I still have social media accounts from back when, but I can't remember the last time I actually engaged in anything.
Okay.
I told you I'm a complete nerd, so I apologize.
That's okay. Yeah. So, and I get that because really there's things that you do in your job that really aren't things that maybe you would be sharing, I'm
a firm believer in my personal life it does not need to be all over social media. I do not judge those who do. I do not judge those who do. You're just not going to find me, because I used to be that person.
Okay.
I used to be that person, but I am no longer that person.
Okay.
Especially with kids. So I use it for business purposes, and I use a lot of LinkedIn to make connections in the racing world.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Lots of LinkedIn for business. And my recommendation for anybody, especially females, it's hard enough to get in the industry. Clean up your social media, get rid of it if you need to, and only utilize stuff for business purposes, because I promise you, people are looking.
Oh yeah, they are, for sure.
Yes.
Good advice, Fallon, for sure.
Yeah, a lot of today's world is about branding, right? And racing is sponsorships and branding. I promise you, people are paying attention to who they're bringing on.
I agree. Well, Fallon, this has been a lot of fun to talk to you and find out more about what you do. Is there anything that we haven't talked about you or about your job? Basically, that's kind of why we had you on, to share about what you do. Is there anything that we haven't touched on that you really want to make sure people know about?
About me specifically?
You or about your job and IMSA, whichever, anything at all.
So I would love to say that I have some incredible mentors at IMSA. I have worked for a lot of racing organizations. This is like my 28th or 29th year receiving a paycheck in motorsports. So I've been in several race control rooms. I have some of the utmost respect for Bo Barfield as a race director and how he operates, how Paul Walter operates his stuff, Simon Hodges, Mark Raffoff. I mean, these men are just absolutely full of knowledge and guidance and wisdom. I love IMSA, and I'm so grateful to be able to represent them. But I also want to say that I've had other mentors like Alan Muse and Frank Angel, Dan Kimber, those three humans, and Phil Saberna as well. Those, again, very male-dominated industry. So I just had a lot of people. And I want to make sure that people realize that you need mentors, lots of mentors. Take all the guidance. You don't have to always do what they say, but listen, because nobody, if they've already been there, they're trying to help for sure.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
And
that's great advice. No matter what industry you're in, that's great advice.
I would not be here if it wasn't for them, because if you think that you're just plopping out, like I said, I came from a family that didn't know anything about racing. I would not be here without all of my mentors in racing and my uncle, who absolutely makes sure that I stay grounded in reality. And obviously my kids and my husband are amazing, because my husband lets me do this.
Yeah. Isn't that awesome? Not every husband would be happy about their wife traveling all the time.
No, especially like in a male-dominated industry. But I won the lottery. I've got so much support here at home, and it's wonderful.
Awesome. and that just makes it fun.
It does. It does. That's another thing, ladies. Make sure you have a lot of support.
Yeah.
Because this is a brutal schedule. It's a brutal life. So if you don't have somebody that's right there supportive of it or okay with what you're doing, it's going to be an uphill battle. I wasn't always so fortunate. So
yeah.
That's how I know.
I'm happy that is the way it is for you. And that's how it should be. It should be that our families support what we do and make it fun. What good is a job if you're not having some fun, right?
Oh, so let me finish with this. Let me tell you, ladies, okay? God love my husband because he's amazing. But he does say to me sometimes, he reminds me, he goes, Fallon, not everybody lives and has their dream job. And not everybody works alongside some of their best friends and gets to hang out with their best friends for life. And he has to remind me of that sometimes, because I do know there are a lot of people that go to jobs they hate in places where they don't feel appreciated. But the racetrack is is not like that. And that's
No.
one of the things I love so much. Like, you can't convince me that I'm not living the dream.
You are, Fallon. You are for sure. Well, thank you for being on the show today. I really appreciate it. I'm glad we're able to tell your story and share with our listeners opportunities that are out there that they may not have thought of. So it's a win-win, right?
Absolutely. And if there's ever anything I can do to help your listeners, I'm not sure what all I have to offer, but I'm here and I'm open.
Okay, sounds good. Well, Fallon, you have a good rest of your week and enjoy the next. When is your next race?
It's actually, I leave for Sebring next week. So,
Okay.
the 12th Sebring.
I feel so bad for you that you're going to Sebring.
Yes,
you enjoy that. I hope the weather's great.
Thank you so much.
I'm sure they don't show race control on television, but if they did, I'd be watching for you.
Well, if they show all of the team that actually does the work, they're going to show all of them. So watch when you're rooting for them, you're rooting for me.
Okay. Sounds good. Awesome. Well, thanks again for being on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, Melinda. You have a great rest of your week.
All right. Thank you.
That's it for this episode of the Women's Motorsports Network podcast. We hope you've been inspired by the stories I shared today and feel more connected to the amazing community of women in motorsports. Remember, whether you're behind the wheel, in the pits, or cheering from the stands, your story matters. And together, we're driving change and celebrating every milestone. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with someone who loves motorsports as much as you do. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and more incredible stories. So until next time, stay inspired, stay connected, and keep racing through life. This is the Women's Motorsports Network podcast, where every woman's story is worth celebrating.